Welcome in. We are live. Man, feeling good, Lester. Feeling good. I don't know what it is. What is it? Is it that we got a bye week coming up? Is it that the Bears just won another football game convincingly? What is it? What, you feeling that
This is
good
the
feeling too?
first winning streak from this team since the Matt Nagy era, right?
Ooh, winning streak is more than two,
More than
right?
2.
You got to have three or more for it to be a streak.
This
So
is
yeah,
it.
that's
Yeah.
good stuff, man. Yeah, I don't know, man. I know we were kind of preaching patience early on and talking about how it was starting to kind of look like it was getting ready to click. It was getting ready to click, and then hey, it clicked.
Yeah. Yeah, I think
Uh,
that's the key. It's like there's people in my mentions, people on social media, they're still playing the let's settle down. Why? What's the point of settling down? It's like they look good. Oh, they're only beating bad teams. Okay. Would you rather
right,
they be losing?
but we talked about last week. There's a difference between getting by,
Yeah.
like just kind of get, hey, we took care of business, but like you don't necessarily feel great about that win. Although some people can say, hey, there's nothing, no such thing as an ugly win, and I can agree with that. I just looked at the Jacksonville schedule, right? So they lost to Miami 17-20. So they lost by 3. They lost to Cleveland, which looks like a pretty bad team, 13-18. They got beat up by Buffalo 47-10. They lost to Houston 20-24. So a one-score game there. They beat the Colts 37-34, and then they get beat by the Bears 35-16. So like yes, they're what is that? 1-5 now. Yeah, so they're not a very good football team, but they've got one other game where they lost by more than one score. That was against Buffalo. Would you say that Buffalo started off the year pretty good? Like they're a pretty decent team, right? Like I just what are we doing here? Trying to do the like quality of win? Like, what's the they haven't beat anybody yet. It's cupcakes. No, they're all NFL teams. That a
Yeah.
lot of these games all kind of come down usually to like one score. If you're able to beat another team by more than one score consistently, that's pretty good. I was going to look up I don't know what the Panthers have done either, but again, they beat the Panthers convincingly, right?
Convincingly,
It's
yeah.
like that's the thing that I'm just not getting from this like, oh, well, you're just beating up bad teams. Like, I'm sure the Panthers probably lost they got beat up by New Orleans. They got beat up by the Chargers. They got beat up by the Bengals. They got beat up by the Bears. They got beat up by the Falcons. So they've been getting beat up. But that's what they did. The Bears came in and they beat them up, right? So if you're hanging out with the teams that you want to be hanging out with, that's what you got to do,
Yeah.
right? The Bears of old would have found a way to make that game really competitive. It would come down to the fourth quarter. Maybe they win, maybe they lose it, right? Like it would have been one of those games. This, I mean, I don't know. Did you ever feel uncomfortable? I mean, yeah, 2 3 and outs to start the game, but did you ever really feel uncomfortable?
No, not really. I mean, it's starting to get to the point where the belief in Caleb is there, right? It's like, yeah, this guy's gonna be, smart enough to make a play and something will happen and the things are clicking, the O line is better and the run game is better. And I, I just let's enjoy this team. It's fun.
I know. I want people to just relax, have a
Yeah,
good time,
relax.
enjoy this thing. You're gonna look back and you're gonna regret not enjoying the moment, I think. But
Right? I say that all the time. If they suck, I'll be pissed when they suck.
yeah,
For now, let's enjoy this.
I'm not gonna borrow worry on a convincing back-to-back win. Come
There
on,
it
let's
is.
go. All right, why don't we get into this? Let's
Let's do it.
record the podcast and then we'll circle back to comments. So let's get into this thing. Write a timestamp.
Such a pro. I love it.
Welcome to Bear and Balanced. I'm Jeff Burkus. On the other side of the screen, Lester A. Wiltfong Jr. Lester, the Bears go to London, convincingly win, take over Tottenham Hotspur Stadium with all the navy and orange. They get a W. They go into the bye 4-2. How did you take the victory?
That was a lot of fun. I mean, I never expected because you hear the stuff online was, oh, that's the Jaguars' second home, right? Because they play there every year. They make a big effort to market that area, but that's also the Bears. I mean, they have marketing rights in the UK. That's a Bears thing. But I'm old enough to remember when the Bears won in '85. The following preseason, right? They send it over there and then they play a game in Wembley, right? '86. Ever since then, the UK has been a Bears city. The London, it's like they all love the Bears. As soon as they announce this game, I'm like, yeah, that's going to be a huge Bears crowd. And when you listen on TV, you're like, yeah, that's definitely a Bears home game. You hear people, the players said the same thing. It's ridiculous how loud it got there. That's a Bears home game. And I used to be really anti overseas stuff. I'm like, oh, what's the point? But I think it's kind of cool, get over there in front of your other fan base, which is, that's not Soldier Field, but yeah, it's cool to go over there once. I mean, they're not there every year, so every now and again, I think it's kind of neat for those guys.
I think it's really cool. And honestly, we have a really strong listenership from overseas fans. And
Yes.
so it's really cool when they get the opportunity to go to games. And I was getting DMs from a few people that were at the game that were, really excited. They were sending pictures. And so I think it's really neat and, get an opportunity to be able to see your team. I saw one picture of a guy who was the International Fan of the Year. And I had met him when I went to the Rams game. He was in Soldier Field for that. I met him at the CHGO tailgate before the game, and he had this like jersey on. I think it was it might have been a Tory Taylor jersey because he announced Tory Taylor's draft pick.
Oh,
And they had this
okay.
Yeah, and he had this patch that said like International Fan of the Year. And so I saw he was at the game because I saw a picture of him on Twitter at the game. And I was like, okay, like that's just kind of cool, right? Like, so I think that the international element's really fun. I've been on a few international podcasts. I think you've probably been on, something like that as well. And so I think the sport is growing in other places than just the US. And so I think it's cool. Like I'm for it. I know that it's a pain for players. I'm sure that they don't love an 8 to 10 hour flight or whatever it is to get over there. I saw that Roy Robertson Harris just got traded.
He did, yeah.
Our old friend,
Yeah.
and he got traded to the Seattle Seahawks. But he was in London because he plays for the Jags, and the Jags play again in London this week. So they have 2 games in a row over there. And so he has to go back to the States to his new team. But it's not just like coming back to the East Coast. He's got to go all the way to Seattle. So that's even I don't know if you're changing planes or if that's even a longer flight. But so he's got to go there and then for practice, and then they play at Atlanta. So imagine the miles that he's racking up this week. But good luck to old friend Roy Robertson Harrison on
Blocked
his new
a field
adventures.
goal against the Bears, right? Just to have
And he gets another chance for a second revenge game in a different uniform at the end of the year because the Bears play the Seahawks in second to last game of the year. So
nice.
exciting for him. But good times. I had a question for you, and we don't do this much, but because we're going into the bye week, I just wanted to spend a minute or two talking about what's next for this team. So we'll get into the game. We'll go through all the categories here in a minute, but I just wanted to take us just to stop and say, okay, Bears are 4-2. We've talked about this a little bit. Like, would you take 4-2 as the year started? If someone offered it to you. Absolutely, right?
Yeah,
Like
yeah, for sure.
say, yeah, for sure. I'll take 4-2 going into the bye week, right? The next 3 you're going to have against Washington Commanders, against the Arizona Cardinals, and against the New England Patriots. Patriots starting a rookie quarterback. They're not a very good football team. That game's at home. You've got to think that's a game that the Bears are going to be favored in. The other 2 games are on the road. The Cardinals are kind of off to an uneven start. I don't know what that game will come down to. Very curious to see what the look ahead line might be against the Commanders. Commanders are definitely a team that a lot of people like right now. We'll see what they look like here in the next week. But I think it could be pretty interesting to just have a conversation about 4-2. You've got these next 3 games, and then you get into kind of the meat of the schedule, this NFC North, all 6 division games, plus the Niners, who, maybe they're going to figure things out, and then the aforementioned Seahawks. So definitely a more meaty part of the schedule in the back end. Well, look ahead a little bit here. Do you think that the Bears kind of need to take business? You gotta kind of come out of that next three with at least a 2-1 record to set yourself up for a potential playoff run on the back end.
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, especially with how tough the NFC North is, and I'm sure we'll get into that a little bit in a while here. But we knew this would be a good division, but man, this is a pretty damn good division. I mean, the Packers. I mean, no one saw the Vikings doing what they're doing. They look real. I mean, we talked a little bit on the pre-show how you never tell what a team is until you kind of get into the season. But they've been impressive. That defense is playing really good. Who expected the quarterback play they're getting from Darnold? I mean, that's but again, we see a lot of these veteran guys that kind of bounce around the league, and some guys just takes a while to figure it out. Maybe he's figured it out. Maybe his is his late career resurgence where now he's a viable quarterback. Geno Smith in Seattle. It took him a little while to kind of catch on. Now he's that's his team there. We've seen it. Brad Johnson with the Bucks a few years ago won a title. So it happens. Maybe Darnold's the next guy that's doing it. So of course the Packers are always good. The Lions have been up and coming the last couple of years. They're a legit contender to win it all. So tough division. Yeah, you got to come out of these next three 2-1 minimum to kind of set yourself up for the for a real playoff push here.
Yeah, it'd be great to go 3-0, but I think you got to kind of hope that they're 6-3 entering that last eight, and then they can split that last eight at 4-4, and you get your 10 wins. That should be enough to make the playoffs. You never know. Tiebreakers are weird. You never know how that things work out at the end, but 10 wins is a pretty good goal for this football team. We've been talking 10 wins all year. So that's where I'm at with that. So at least 2-1 here. If you get to 3-0, I'm going to feel really good about the prospects of making the playoffs. So let's get into the categories here. We always start off in the trenches with our trench tribute. And again, just like last week, when you have such a dominating performance and both sides of the football look pretty good, there's a lot of places to go. Where are you going?
I got a guy written down on offense and defense. Just wanted to be prepared this week. But
Okay.
I like DeMarcus Walker, what he did there at defensive line. Again, he's a guy that plays a lot of snaps, but he's productive. He had 4 tackles in the game. He had 1 tackle for loss. He had a sack. He had a couple quarterback hits. He's just a solid pro. I love the signing, when it happened. And then he kind of had a slow start, and they looked to replace him right away. And with of course they made a trade for Sweat, and kind of then he's back kind of as a reserve, and but they were comfortable having this season start with him as one of your top defensive ends, and then of course they're moving him inside the tackle once in a while. Just a solid football player. I like what he brings this team, and then of course the leadership side of things. He is one of those leaders on that defense. He's really vocal. A locker room leader guy as well. So that's a good pickup a year ago, and he's really coming to his own here with the Bears.
Yeah, I like that. I mean, you'd obviously like it if he was your solid number 3 defensive end, like you had another guy, at the Sweat's level, or, somewhere, maybe plus or minus a half level for Montez Sweat. And then you have Walker coming in, but he's been kind of that 2A with Taylor, and I don't know how you want to stack Taylor, but they're very different players. And so it's kind of fun to see the contrast, and, some weeks, depending on who you're going against, one might have more success than the other. And I think we've seen that, sometimes where the speed of Taylor really plays well, and then other weeks where more power from Walker plays. And so it's fun to have that contrast. I love the idea of building a defensive end room like a basketball team in some ways, where you have these different skill sets and these different sizes that might match up against the offensive lines that you're going against, because offensive linemen don't trade out, right? Like offensive line is going to play the whole game. And so you can kind of figure out where your skill set matches up best. You see that with, really elite guys. They can go against anybody, but elite defensive ends. I was watching the Niners, and Bosa was like lining up on the one side the whole game. And then all of a sudden he just switches the other side. And I think he was just like, let me try this other side. I want to try to beat this other guy. Right. And so I think that's really interesting approach that you'll see. And some games, guys are going to have a little bit more success than others. And so I think Walker's a great pick. I did think he filled the stat sheet, so I'm glad that you mentioned him. I wanted to go offensive line because I felt like we were giving a lot of love to defensive line over the first few weeks because nothing was going well for the offensive line. The last couple of weeks, it has. Obviously, quality of opponent has something to do with that, but
It helps. It's okay.
it helps. It helps a little bit. But I think Tevin Jenkins deserves the Trench tribute today.
That was my other guy.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
So he played incredibly well. I think that he maybe got a little angry from getting nicked up and missing part of the game, and he came back, and I think he's just like, you know what, I'm just going to be Tev, and I'm going to go after it. It seems like he's found that aggression again. That's what he's good. That's when he's his best, is when he just sort of goes for it. Felt like he was maybe playing a little bit more reserved in the first few games. No idea if that's true or not. It just sort of seemed like that on tape. He kind of went after it. He's getting some aggression out. That's the kind of Tev that I like, is the guy that's angry and wants to take it out on the opposing team. A little bit of like a mini shout out though. There was some good stuff out today with the double teams with Darnell Wright and Matt Pryor. That's a lot of beef coming at you, but they were really moving defensive tackles, defensive linemen off the ball and hitting that second level. That's the kind of like power, those duo blocks. That's the kind of power run game that you really like to see. But could you imagine having to be there and being like, here's Matt Pryor, who looks just like a gigantic human being. And we know that Darnell Wright's big. You want to try to take on that double team? Yeah, you're going to be 5 yards behind before you know it, right? Those guys are just moving dudes.
Was there a Twitter thread I missed that came out about that?
Baldy kind of pointed it out that those
I have
two
not watched Baldy stuff yet. I always make sure I
Yep.
check it. Okay, I'll for sure check that after the show.
So I want to give a little shout out to those guys because I love, as you can appreciate, I love watching power offensive line play.
Yeah.
Like that's a lot of fun where you're just physically taking giant human beings and moving them backwards. That's one of my favorite things to watch in football. So wanted to give a little bit of props for that, but the Trench tribute for me goes to Tev.
I'm glad you mentioned Jenkins and how he was playing early in the year. I'm with you. I mean, there was something different, right? I mean, you can't look at him and say, well, he's regressed. I mean, he's not that age where he's going to regress. And the injuries he's had hasn't been to the point where it should have sapped him of any of his power or strength. So there's a reason, right? Like he was playing differently early on in the season. This last game against the Panthers, again, quality of opponent has something to do with it, but he looked pretty good in Panthers before he got hurt. He looked really good this game against the Jags. So nice bye week coming up. Get nice rest and refreshed, and then come out and be ready to go. And let's see the Tev of old, because that's the guy that's going to get paid if he stays healthy.
Yeah, absolutely. Whether it's here or somewhere else, but if he can play with that aggression, put some good tape out there, that's only going to benefit him in the long run. So glad to have you back, Tevin Jenkins. So let's move on to the Twitter portion, our sweet tweets. My tweet, I'll start us off today. This is from Benjamin Solak, at Benjamin Solak. He says the NFL leader in point differential, so points scored minus points allowed, is the Vikings at plus 61. Then the Lions are in second place at plus 60. Then the Bears in third place. The Bears in third place on a really important stat at plus 47. The Packers are in fourth place at plus 41. Now you might be thinking, am I just talking about the NFC North? Yes, I am talking about the NFC North, but that is the top 4 teams in the entire league. So he finishes the tweet by saying every team in the NFC North has a better point differential than every other team in the NFL. What? What is happening? What is happening in the NFC North that we have potentially 4 like playoff quality teams fighting it out in the black and blue division?
I think I saw a stat that's saying this is the latest 4 teams in one division has had winning records, 6 weeks in. So I would imagine this is probably the first time this has happened as well, because, you can't have that big point differential, unless you had a winning record. So I'm imagining that's just what it is. So who would have thought it, man? I mean, we all thought the Bears would be better. Like we talked earlier, the Vikings kind of came out of nowhere. We'll see what happens here. I mean, the Vikings coming off their bye. It's Vikings Lions coming up this coming up week. So that's going to be a good game, a fun game to kind of get a gauge on the division. Packers are always going to be there. So it's going to be nice as a fan, just kind of sit back and kind of watch how these teams kind of play out this next week.
I think the stat was started with the new division realignments, where
Alignment, there it is.
it
Yeah,
was
yeah.
the eight divisions of 4 teams, because there's some history with, four teams making the playoffs,
Yeah.
and so there's some of that, and I don't know, I think maybe the AFC North might have, did they send everybody last year? Like
They might have.
there's some stuff out there, but at least with this division, which is the one that we care about, this hasn't happened since the realignment. It has happened with the Bears and these 4 teams back when it was the Central. It was back in 1994 when they wore those, like, either really cool or really ugly throwback
Ugly.
jerseys, depending on how you come down on
Ugly.
that side of it. They were ugly. I would love to see the reimagined version of those, if like Nike got a hold of them, to see if they can maybe do something cool, because they tend to do some of the throwback stuff pretty well. But yeah, they're rough. Those are rough jerseys. They're fun to see in the wild, but they're 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 rough. All right, let's move on to yours. What did you have?
So my tweet is from Ilan NFL at Ilan NFL. I'm not sure his name because he's got an emoji as his username there, but he tweeted out, funny but true stat. Caleb Williams has thrown 18 passes this season into the intermediate middle of the field. Fields through 19 all of last season. We're 6 games in, and we're seeing Caleb kind of work the whole field. To kind of give you an idea what that is, that's between the hashes, 10 to 19 air yards. So he's working the middle of the field, the intermediate routes. You know, that's a big part. You have to do that as an NFL quarterback. You can't just pepper the sidelines all the time. You have to work what the defense gives you, and a lot of times they're kind of taking the sidelines away because, of course, that's like an extra defender. You know, the way you kind of play your leverage. Middle's there sometimes. It's a little easier to find holes in the zone there. Caleb's doing it, and it's like he's 6 games into his career, and he's doing things that we have not seen in Chicago in a very long time.
Yeah, and I think why that's important is that if you can make all the throws and you can put them all on film, you're not going to give any tendencies away where they're going to say, like, okay, well, you seem to throw, to the right side very well. So we're going to make sure we put all our leverage over there. And now we're going to try to make you throw where you're not comfortable. Right.
Yeah.
And so I don't want to make this like an anti-Fields thing, but Fields has parts of his game that weren't very developed. And we're comparing that to a rookie quarterback in Caleb Williams, who appears to be on track to have that balance everywhere into the field, and that's important. Now, it may seem like, well, okay, middle of the field, 10 to 20, like you're being really specific, but that is part of the game, because you need to be able to work that part of the game to have all of those throws available to you. So it is interesting. It is interesting that you've seen that many attempts in that part of the field already from him, because he's willing to work everywhere. And that throw to, I would assume that throw to Keenan Allen for the touchdown, that would probably have qualified as an intermediate middle of the throw field, right? Middle of the field throw.
Yeah, I think it does, because what prompted his tweet was that he tweeted out that Caleb was 5 for 5 for 91 yards and 2 touchdowns in this last game in that range.
I think that would be one of them. I mean, the
That's
other one
probably
would have been Komet, but that might have been more than 20.
That might have been
air
a
yards, but
deep
I'm not
one. Yeah, that
sure
was a nice
where
one.
that was. I can't picture that in my head necessarily, but that's good stuff. Well, that's a really good way for us to segue into Caleb's corner this week. So Caleb Williams, 23 of 29, 226 yards, 4 touchdowns, 1 interception, 3 sacks for 5 yards lost. So a couple of them were like he was scrambling, didn't get back to the line of scrimmage. So that's going to be annoying for you, because
I
it's
hate
extra
those
work.
sacks.
Yeah, that's extra work for you in sack watch, but they weren't big losses. 3 sacks for 5 yards lost it really indicates that we're not talking about these big dropbacks, or some of these scramble backward things that maybe were haunting him earlier. He did take off 4 times for 56 yards. Incredibly impressive, efficient day. The QBR and the quarterback ratings are really high. 4 touchdown passes really gets that pace up. We're already now on watch for breaking the rookie record. He could do that coming out in Washington in 2 weeks if he's able to throw 3 more touchdown passes. He'll own the rookie franchise record there. So there's already some really good stuff happening. He's staying on pace for the yardage record. Like he's still pretty close to that. He's certainly going to break the rookie yardage record here in probably 3 more games. That should be his. So there's a lot of really good stuff that's happening here. Probably the most impressive stat line, even if it's not a 300-yard game. It's just incredibly efficient and, making all these really good throws. What stood out to you about this performance?
Kind of the same thing last week, right? It wasn't the stats. It was how he manipulated the defense with his eyes, how he did things with the ball, how he went through his reads and his progressions. He's playing at a level we have not seen in Chicago in a long time. It's just wild to see what's happening here, because, and then you look at the throws. Okay, he had to throw to DJ Moore down the sideline. Was just, I don't know what he was doing there. That's the first thing he talked about at the post game, that he has to be better. Just, it looked like he's trying to aim it, like he put a little too much under it. Just let it rip. He's still working through some of those deep ball stuff that he did in college so well. So it's there. So he's working through that. But those 2 touchdowns to Keenan Allen. The one was just a zip, right? Just rifled over the middle between 2 guys. The other one was just a beautiful fade on the sideline where you're like, like, when's the last time a Bears quarterback was able to pull both of those things off?
I mean, Cuddy could throw the fastball.
Yeah.
Right. I don't know who can throw that fade route. I don't remember.
He had his moments, but I mean, we're 6 games in and we're seeing things out of a rookie where it's like,
oh no, I was trying to answer your question. I don't know that there's been a quarterback that could do both. Right. I think, I don't remember the last time we saw a Bears quarterback that could throw a fade with that level of touch and precision. I mean, that's just like handing the ball off, that's how good that is. And like throwing a catchable ball is a thing. Like that's a thing that a lot of receivers will talk about. And the bullets maybe aren't, as catch, but that's what you're paying those guys for when you got to zip it in there. This man, I mean, and it's also perfect placement. It wasn't just like I'm throwing a 100-mile-an-hour fastball, go dig it out of the ground. That there was a lot of love for that Keenan Allen touchdown pass, because the phrase is threw him open, meaning that he wasn't necessarily open. He put the ball in the right spot, because Keenan had to go the other way, away from the defender. And so, and the ball's in the air before Keenan has fully turned around. And so it's just one of those, like, it's a beautiful pass. If you watch a lot of football, I think that you probably I think everybody can appreciate it, but I think that the location, the velocity, the timing, like everything about that is really special. And that's why I think if you watched any of those national guys that were talking about Caleb Williams and his performance, a lot of them were focusing in on that throw, because that was such a fantastic placement. Velocity was there. Like, I mean, fitting that in between the defenders, making your guy move for it. That's exactly, like, you draw that up. That's how you draw that up.
Yeah, it was nice. And then with Keenan, I mean, he kind of waited to the end. I mean, he wasn't looking forward to it. He kind of was smart with his hands.
On the fade.
Yeah, on the fade. So yeah, it was just an overall good play from the execution of the Bears.
So on the fade, Keenan does a really good job of giving late hands.
Late hands. That's the term I was looking for.
That's the term where you don't want to, like, oh, I see the ball's coming to me and I put my hands out, because then the defender is going to know the ball's coming. They're going to, like, look back and try to make a play. If you just run and you're just running like, oh, it's not coming to me, and then you come out with your hands late, it's already too late. The ball's already past him. You can't jump up and do that. So that Caleb gave late hands there. And then they were talking about on the broadcast about, oh man, that foot was just in. He dragged this foot. Like, I don't know what this broadcasting, well, maybe we'll get to it in a minute, but like, this broadcast team was a little rough, but he dragged the foot. Like, there was no doubt about it. And then it, lifted up and then came back down, still in play. But great route by Keenan, great catch by Keenan, better throw by Caleb. Everything about it was great. And those timing things, again, that's kind of what we were talking about. You just need to kind of get clicked in, and you're starting to see that. So the more, arrows that are added to the quiver, this just gets more and more interesting as we get along. I mean, I'm really excited for the bye week. Yeah, I think it's important for the Bears to get healthy, all those things. I really want to get another game. Like, I can't wait to watch this team continue to get better. And I
Yeah.
don't know the last time that I was so excited for the next game to start. You know what I mean? Like,
And
I'm
then we
like,
got to buy. So it's like, oh,
yeah, it's like, no, I mean, I want the buy. The buy is important, all that kind of stuff. But I really want to see him play again. I really want to see Caleb play again because I want to
yeah.
see where this growth goes. It's so much fun to watch him add elements to his game that we just didn't see early on, and every week it just keeps stacking, and that's exciting to me.
Yeah. It's I was on a show earlier and I was kind of talking about a little bit of how part of it's Caleb, obviously, right? But part of it is just the trust that the coaching staff has in him. I mean, we've seen past quarterbacks in Chicago where they didn't trust him to do it all. Even Cutler, Cutler would fight with his OC a lot because there were things they didn't want him doing. Like the whole Martz era. He wasn't able to check out of certain plays. He had to run what was called, and Caleb has the keys, man. I mean, he's doing the whole thing here at the line, no huddle. Check with me's. He's doing it all. And then
Yeah,
real quick, the touchdown to Keenan, I heard in the press conference that was a run with a check to me fade based on the look. And when they got up to the line, they both liked the look. They're on the same page mentally, and he threw the fade.
yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome to hear, and I think that someone had pointed out, like, hey, he's got full control here, and that's great. That's great to see as a rookie. You just don't see that. We don't know how many he's getting right.
Right.
Like, just one of those, like, where, like, hey, this is all great, and you hope that he's going to continue to get that percentage up, because you can read it and you could read it wrong, and
Yeah.
and that's a real thing. There's a learning curve to that, but you're giving him all of it up front. That's incredible. So it's so exciting. It is so exciting. I'm so glad we're here, and just dreaming about what this looks like here in the coming future. But let's get on to the next category and let's talk about our stat of the week. Caught up in a numbers game. I wrote down a couple because I wanted to make sure that I didn't overlap with you. But what do you got?
So my number this week is 4, 3, and 2. Okay.
Okay.
That is Cole Kmet's ranking among all tight ends in the NFL in catches, yards, and touchdowns.
Okay.
We're just 6 weeks in. It's a small sample size, but after that first week where he did nothing, right? He was kind of like ignored. Here he is now coming on. He's 4th in receptions. He has 26 behind Brock Bowers, Trey McBride, George Kittle. He's 3rd in yards behind Bowers and Dallas Goedert. And then he's 2nd in touchdown catch with 3 behind George Kittle's 5. There's a few guys tied with him at 3, but still, he's at this level now where you expect him to do something each week. And, is he an elite athlete? Is he making all these crazy plays? And he's not Travis Kelce. He's not George Kittle, but he's a pretty damn good football player. He's doing a lot what he's asked to do. And, 25 years old still, right? We're talking the top 10 tight end, maybe top 8. I don't know how far you want to push that top thing, but he's one of the better tight ends in the game. And he's locked up here for a while. Plus, he grew up a Bears fan. That's cool.
I mean, I feel like we have been a very pro full commit podcast since the beginning. Since we went to camp and saw them trying to feature him, we've certainly liked what we've seen. But I think even you and I can appreciate the step up in his game. And the thing that I always think about with tight ends is that what a tough position.
Yeah.
Like, what a tough position, because you do need to hold up in your pass blocking and run blocking. Like, you got to be able to do something. Like, you can't be a wide receiver where you're getting being used as a projectile like Carter was that one play, right? Like, you got to be able to kind of stand up in pass pro, even if it's just a chip. Like, you got to learn that. You got to be able to get some blocks in the run game. Like, that's an important piece of that. And there's plenty of guys that can do that, but not really produce in the pass game. And then there's plenty of guys that can produce in the pass game, but they can't produce in the run game. But you're really wanting out of a guy like Kmet is to be able to be pretty good at both. And so he's pretty good at both, but now he's kind of taking it up a little bit more, where now it's like, take that pretty off. He's good. Like, he's good at both now. And so that's really impressive. He's locked up in a nice contract. Like, it's good, right? Like, we talk about Roshan Johnson like that, where he's maybe not amazing at anything, but he's kind of well-rounded, like that kind of back where maybe you can see him projecting into being this like well-rounded guy. I mean, Komet's already there as a tight end and he's getting better. Like he's getting improving all of the aspects of his game this year. I don't know if he did more speed work in the off season. I don't know if he did, put on a little bit more more muscle mass or what it is, but he looks like he's moving a little bit better in the passing trees and he's making plays. I gotta say, in that touchdown, let me be more specific. The longer touchdown where
First
the
one,
the,
okay.
the
Yeah.
double fake screen down the middle, when he caught that and he turns around, it's like he looked at the safety and was like, "I'm running you over.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not running away. I'm not going to try to make a move. I'm coming right at you and I'm going to run you over." And I thought, good for you, big fella. Good for you.
In his press conference after the game, he talked about what he was thinking there, and he said he learned it from Jimmy Graham, right? Old Bears veteran tight end, kind of came in when Kmet was a young player, and he said that Jimmy Graham taught him when you get that in open field. He said, "I'm not making a guy miss." That's what he said. So you want to try and attack half a man, trying to attack him to where it's your whole body weight on just half of his body weight, and that way you can run through it. So here's Cole Kmet, now 25 years old. He is the grizzled vet of that room now because he's been one of the longest tenured Bears.
Well, Lewis is still
Lewis, yeah, well,
Lewis is
yeah,
very
okay.
much the grizzled vet.
He's the grizzled vet, but as far as the tenure in Chicago,
Sure.
Cole Kmet's, he's one of those guys. So, but here he is. He's thinking back to when he was younger and passing on that wisdom to the next generation. That he kind of says that Jimmy Graham. I mean, as Bears fans, like, why are they bringing back Jimmy Graham? Well, he was there to teach Kmet the way, apparently.
Sometimes that is worth it, right? I mean, we talked a lot about with Keenan Allen. Is Keenan Allen really worth that draft pick and that money? And it's like, yeah, it is, because what he's going to be able to teach DJ.
Yes.
If DJ's willing to learn about route running and sharpening up some of that craft. But more than anything for me, it's Rome.
Mm-hmm.
If Rome can learn a little bit of that craft from Keenan Allen, oh man, I'm so excited about it. I know Rome hasn't put up the numbers yet. I'm still excited. Every time he touches the ball, I'm like, why isn't he getting 3 times the targets? This guy's about to go off. But for me, my stat is 12. That's 12 games in a row for this defense of holding opponents to 21 points or fewer. Goes back to the Lovie Smith days with the Brian Urlacher days, where 12 straight games with that. So really great streak there. And you gotta give this defensive coordinator, defensive play caller, you've got to give Matt Eberflus credit. Once he stepped in, started calling the plays, you got Montez Sweat, you started figuring stuff out. I mean, the last time that an opponent scored more than 21 was the Detroit game, where I believe that was the big loss, the big lead that was blown, if I'm remembering correctly. So it goes back quite a ways. I mean, we're talking about 12 games, and you got to start giving him credit for taking these pieces and shaping game plans every week on how to slow teams down. And in this league, if you're able to hold opponents to 21 points or less, you're going to win a lot of those football games.
Yeah, I mean, it's a good defense. It's bordering on top 10, probably a little better. And I know the DVOA is pretty high there. They're taking the ball away. I mean, again, we saw the peanut punch from TJ Edwards this week. It's preached. They preach takeaways, they preach turnovers. They want them. They go after them. It's in their DNA now. So, opposing teams now are seeing this, right? I mean, they know they have to really be careful. It's just like it wasn't in the Lovie days, and this is what Flus's philosophy is. That's what his philosophy is all about. It's hustle to the ball. It's get there. It's if you're around the ball, good things can happen. And that's what this defense is doing.
I love it. Let's move on to our break. But before we get there, let's hear from our partners at Underdog.
Underdog Fantasy. That's right. Is the greatest time of year. Again, football's back and here to stay until February. Over 1 million fans across 33 states got in the game last year by making picks on Underdog. Signing up on Underdog is quick and easy, and because I like to keep things very simple, I like using their mobile app. I have been riding with the higher stats for Caleb, for Swift, but I think the next time I'm going to wait and see what's going on with the Washington game in a couple weeks. I might see what they got with Komet, because Komet has been cooking here. I think Komet may be a guy you want to keep an eye on and moving forward here. So making picks Underdog is straightforward, and signing up is even easier. Just head over to Underdog's simple to use mobile app or underdogfantasy.com. Sign up with our promo code CITY, that's CITY, and Underdog will give you a free pick to use on your first cash pick'em entry, plus up to $1,000 in bonus cash when you deposit. Underdog Fantasy, promo code CITY to claim your new customer special of a free pick and deposit offer. Must be 19 plus in Alabama, Nebraska, 19 plus Colorado for some games, 21 plus Massachusetts and Arizona, and present in a state where Underdog Fantasy operates. Terms apply. Void in Colorado. Concerned with your play? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit www.ncpgambling.org. In Arizona, 1-800-NEXT-STEP, 1-800-639-8783, or text NEXT STEP to 53342. In New York, call the 24/7 Hope line at 1-877-8-HOPE-NY, or text HOPE-NY 467369.
Nice. Excellent job. Quick break. We'll be back on the other side with 3 bears. Stick with us. All right, Lester, all those numbers, but I need to talk about 3 more. Those are the 3 bears: hot bowl of porridge, cold bowl of porridge, and just right. Again, in a blowout, you could go a lot of different directions. Hot bowl of porridge, where are you heading?
I'm boring, man. I'm like last week. I've got to stick with Caleb here. Just
Okay.
because the way he's doing it. I mean, I had Caleb and Cole Komet written down. Komet, I got to give the love because of the long snapping. That's just some phenomenal stuff there. Stepping in as a long snapper. He had a couple high snaps, but look, he does this a couple snaps every Thursday. That's really all he does here. So, but Caleb, man, just the way he's doing the offense, the way he is orchestrating things. He is a maestro up there. He understands what he's doing. He's getting his guys in place. You know, he's just at a level now, you know, a few weeks in a row now. We talk about the progression is never linear, right? But he's doing it, man. Every week he's getting better and better. It's fun to watch. This week he's up for the FedEx Air and Ground Player of the Week. So make sure you vote for him, Bears fans. Let's get him that hardware. It's kind of cool. So Caleb, Cole, I'm going a double hot bowl this week.
I don't know how Caleb Williams didn't win the Rookie of the Week last week. Like, it doesn't make any sense to me. I'm sure that he'll win it this week, but these things are weird. I don't understand how the voting happens or what people look into, but yeah, those things might matter at some point, particularly with the Rookie of the Year stuff going on. But yeah, if he can win the big award, not just the Rookie award, but a big award, and start stacking some of those will turn some heads. Those are a big deal. I put out a poll question in advance for the show. I'm going to talk about that now. My poll question was, who leads the Bears in explosive plays? An explosive play is 20 yards or more from scrimmage through 6 games. So Lester, is it DJ Moore, DeAndre Swift, Rome Odunze, or Cole Kmet?
I was wondering when you're going to twist this back into the show. I was like thinking, man, when's it coming? I think I voted DeAndre Swift.
Okay. You voted with 48% of respondents, and you are wrong.
Is it Cole?
DeAndre Swift is tied for second with 4 explosive plays. He's tied with DJ Moore and Rome Odunze. Cole Kmet has 5. Cole Kmet is leading this team in explosive plays. So he was going to be my hot bowl of porridge. You gave out 2. I'm giving him a second helping because not only did he catch 2 touchdown passes, but he also was the backup long snapper. I know the snaps weren't perfect. I don't care. They weren't over the head. They were able to get down. I know that the missed field goal, I think, was in part because it was a high snap, but that's okay. That's okay. That was really cool. Cool experience for him. Fun little nugget. I'm sure our buddy Jack Silverstein is already, has that, blocked away for some other time. So I also wanted to shout out Josh Blackwell and the backup DBs. Now, I know Jalen Jones may not have had the best day in the world. Generally, when you're a corner and you have 9 tackles, that means you got picked on a little bit. But I think that it's a tough job to come in as, cornerback 4 cornerback 5, cornerback 6 on this roster. I mean, that's not easy to come in and make plays. Blackwell made a play. The important thing is that this team did not give up a lot of points. They played pretty well, and this was with Elijah Hicks filling in for Brisker, and again Blackwell filling in, Jalen Jones filling in. So there was a lot of backups here, and we talked about this a little bit in the preseason, where the depth of this secondary is so good that there are players that were cut and brought back on the practice squad that I think would be on a lot of active rosters. And so it was interesting that they were able to kind of keep those guys. But there's a lot of really talented players that may not see the field very much. And when they are needed, it's really nice to see when they step up.
I went with them as just right. I'm gonna throw that out there now because
Okay.
you look, you want your reserves to come in, right? Like we expected Brisker was out, so we knew there'd be one safety, right? Then it was announced Stevenson was out, so now that's a second one, and then of course Kyler Gordon was out, so now you have a third one, which is kind of unexpected. But if it was just one or the other, you got to come in, you got to do your best, you got to perform, and keep the train moving because we got pretty good defense here. All three of them, they all did their job. They all did what they were supposed to do. Of course, you got the nice pick out of Blackwell late. But Hicks had a few tackles. I think 4 or 5 tackles. He had a pass defense. He had a fumble recovery. He picked up and tried to scoop it and do some stuff. Jones, he had 10 tackles. I was kind of watching the rewatch because I want to use, like you said, when your DB has that many tackles, especially a corner. Sometimes they're getting picked on, yes, and he was getting picked on because you're not going to throw to Jalen Johnson. Like that's ridiculous. I saw a stat today from PFF. They threw it out there. He's still he's leading all corners and passing yards against. It's ridiculous how good he has become, and he has continued to ascend and get better. So yeah, they're going to go after Jalen Jones, but he wasn't giving up huge cushions. They were playing that zone stuff and keeping the play in front of him, making a sound tackle. So all three of those guys, all those reserves, it came in, they did what they had to do, and then they got the job done.
Yep, absolutely. All right, so let's flip it around. Let's do Cold Bowl. I don't know that I actually have a good answer. So did you come up with something?
I did come up with one guy. He was inactive this week.
Okay.
For the first time, and Nate Davis, right? What's going on with Nate Davis? He makes huge money.
Yeah.
I think we all kind of expected this was the last year for Nate Davis, right? Unless he really bounced back and figured things out. We figured this was it for Nate. But now he may not even last the season.
We may be talking about cutting Nate Davis.
Yeah.
A healthy scratch is a big deal for a guy that's supposed to be a starter.
Yeah.
And a healthy scratch for Nate Davis, who clearly is not on the good side of this coaching staff. And you have Ryan Bates, who might be, I don't know what Ryan Bates' status is, but if he's coming back here soon, that's another position, an interior offensive lineman. You've gotten some really good play from Bill Murray. They clearly like Matt Pryor.
Yeah.
And so now you're talking about who you cut when Ryan Bates comes back. Well, you're probably going to cut Doug Kramer because you can probably hide him on the practice squad, and Kerry Blasingame has to come back at some point, right? So I don't know what they're losing with that, but I don't know anymore, right? It's interesting, just because you're making a lot of money, they might be ready to let Nate Davis go at this point.
Well, you got Ryan Bates coming back soon. At some point, he'll be back, I'm sure. Larry Borum should be coming off IR pretty soon. So now you got 2 linemen coming into the mix. Like you said, it seems like Kramer's the odd man out because he's just there to kind of play your gimmicky fullback role, which we love it. I love that role.
Love it.
But you could find another offensive lineman to kind of do that. You can find a defensive lineman.
Get Bill Murray's ass back there.
Get Bill Murray's ass back there. So you can find someone to kind of play that role. But you're not cutting Kieran Amangazi.
Right.
Bill Murray seems to have a place here as he's ahead of Nate Davis in the depth chart. So if you bring back 2 linemen, Nate Davis is the odd man out. That's a lot of money, but look, it's a sunk cost. So whether he's on the roster or not, I think this could be it.
All right. I love it. I'm glad you brought it up. I'm glad we talked about it. I was going to say the overturned fumble. So Brad Allen's crew. I haven't picked on the refs at all this year. I was livid watching that play because clearly Travis Etienne had possession and made a football move, and it was a great play by Edmonds to punch the ball out. It was still early in the game where that felt like a really big moment. Bears had clear recovery. They called it on the field a fumble and a Bears recovery, and they overturned it. And I mean, what are we doing? Like that's such a like, oh, we're gonna go super slow mo and we're gonna go frame by frame and we're gonna make this. I cannot get myself there. That was clear and obvious. That was enough for you to change your mind. And there's so much of this that happens. These are giant plays. These are huge plays, and these are also big for me to track. Like these are turnovers. These are forced fumbles. The Bears have goals of trying to get 20 forced fumbles and 20 20 interceptions, right? Like I want these turnovers to happen because it seems like they're kind of keeping that pace. So I want to see them get those numbers. But I I just don't get it sometimes. Like the amount of football that I watch and I'm like, oh, that'll stand. That'll be fine. And then, oh no, they overturned this one.
Yeah.
Like, what is happening? And I don't think I'm being a homer here. I just think I watched that play. I'm like, yep, that's out. That's clearly a fumble.
Yeah, there's a still to this day we're watching games and replays and like if they still don't know what a catch is half the time, it's like, come on, guys. It's like it should not be this complicated. That was there a football move? That's the big buzzword, the football move. Yeah, I think there was. I mean, he clearly did something with it. I mean, are they going to put it on a stopwatch? He has to have the ball for X amount of seconds. That's not what they're doing here. So catch, turn, move. That's a strip. Should have been a strip.
So that was a bummer. And then they did force another. I was just gonna say they did force another fumble, but the Jags recovered that one. That was on special teams. So that was cool to see. So again, the ball's popping out.
Yeah,
It's preached. For just right, you already gave your just right out, so it's on to me. I wrote down two because again, I don't want to like give out the same one if we can help it. But I had Kevin Byard made a couple nice plays. That's what we expect. Expect him to maybe step up a little bit with Brisker gone. Had that really nice pass defense in the end zone. Had a really nice tackle. It looked like it just prevented a first down. It was just a really nice play by Byard there. I really like him. He's come in and he's played some really good football. I've always liked him as a football player. I know he had a weird last season getting traded and they didn't really like him in Philly. Whatever happened with that, I don't know.
Philly fans said he sucked in Philly.
Maybe he did. I've always had like kind of a soft spot for a guy that gets traded in the middle of the year.
Yeah.
Like how hard, I know you're a professional, but how hard that would be to come in to a brand new scheme, a new environment, new teammates, you're in a new city, like everything's new. Maybe I'm projecting too much of myself onto it, but I just think like how hard that would be. And then to just be like, oh, and you're supposed to be just like amazing from the get-go. And it's like, well, do you need time to like meld with these other guys that he's playing with and, make plays or whatever, but he just might not have been a fit, right? Like they might have been playing him out of position. Maybe they had more problems than just the safety positions. I think I think Poles said something to the effect of, we were surprised that this guy was available. Like this was like kind of a gift that he was out there. And so we went out and got him. And, again, you're worried, like, did a guy fall off a cliff and you're putting in some money to a guy that may not be playing at the level that you think he is, but I think he's played some really good football so far, and he's really added to this room. And he's given that grizzled veteran leadership as well, because he's definitely the oldest guy in that room. So really, really happy with him. And then speaking of grizzled veterans on the other side, Keenan Allen. This is what we thought we were getting from Keenan Allen. Those are some really nice routes. Those are some really nice catches. Showing both. Both the touchdown catches are really great. That one first down, another bullet where it looked like Caleb might have left a mark on him.
Yeah.
Like it looked like he threw the ball through him. Like that was again. He's throwing 105 on some of these passes, but. I think this is exactly what we thought we were getting out of Keenan Allen. And then again, you get a little injury early in the year. He has to miss some time. You need a little bit more of that time on task to get that synergy going here. This is what I thought. Keenan Allen's been one of my favorite players in the league for a very, very long time. This is what I thought the Bears were getting.
I had Allen written down as my backup for the just right. There was a play. It was one of Adunze's catches over the middle, and Kurt Warner pointed out in the broadcast that he was open because Keenan Allen's route pulled the linebacker up. That's the kind of stuff Keenan Allen does, because you have to be aware for where he is, especially when you're playing against a zone, because he knows those spots, right? So he settles into that spot. The linebacker sees it. Oh, that's Keenan Allen. I got to make a step up, and then there goes Rome behind him. So again, good job by Keenan Allen in doing his job, but nice play design by Shane Waldron. Make sure that Rome was the guy that kind of filled that gap there. Then for Kevin Bayard, I saw the same stuff from Philly, right? They said, "Oh, he's bad. He's bad now. It's good luck with him. He sucks." So I dug into it a little bit, and I talked to a few people. Apparently, the Eagles had a ton of injuries at corner last year, so their safeties were stressed all the time. All the time. It was just a bad defense, of course. And of course, there's the Sean Desai was calling plays, and then Matt Patricia started calling plays. So it's like, everything kind of was just a mess back there for the entire defensive, the secondary. That's a big reason why why some guys thought he fell off. But of course, fans, from a fan perspective, oh, he sucks. He's terrible. He looks pretty damn good to me.
Yeah. It's funny what happens when you play with other good players too, right?
Right.
You put in a position,
Yeah.
you're in the right scheme, you're controlling your environment. Yeah, I remember reading a book, and this is maybe a better story for a post podcast, but I remember I think Tim Ryan wrote a book about playing in the league, and he was talking about how he came home and his wife was like really embarrassed, because not like she felt bad for him or something. She's like, what's wrong? Like, what's going on? Oh, well, on the broadcast, they said that you made this mistake. And so like, I don't know if you feel bad or whatever. And he's like, what are you talking about? And it turned out that the broadcast, they didn't know what they were diagnosing. And he was in the right position, but the guy next to him made the mistake. But on the film, it looked like he was the one that made the mistake, just because of how the play played out. And he was like, well, no, that's not what happened at all. Right. And so there's some times where that just happens, like where you make an assumption because it's what you see. I mean, I think you see a lot of this on Twitter, or like people like screenshotting. Look how open this guy was.
Screenshot. Yeah.
And it's like, yeah, that guy's not a read in the play. Like, he's not in the progression, or he's the fourth guy in the progression. Or he got open after, like he needs to be open at 5 yards, and then the quarterback moves on to his second and third read, and he's open 3 seconds into the play. Like, you have to understand what these plays are and what the purpose are sometimes. So, I don't know how to evaluate secondary as well as other parts of the game. Like that is, I will fully admit that. And so for me, when it's all going wrong, I need somebody to tell me why. But when it's going right, it's a lot of fun. That's some of my favorite stuff to watch, is like good secondary play when they're passing stuff off and they're kind of locking things up. And that's what this Bears secondary looks like it can do. So really impressed with them, really impressed with Bayard and everything that he's been bringing. Love seeing vintage Keenan Allen. And so let's keep it going. Let's get rested up. I'm going to get rested up. You're going to get rested up. Successful first 6 weeks. Bears are going to get rested up, and we're going to hit this second half hard. Any final thoughts as we close this one out?
Just real quick back on the secondary. Flus did say that it looks like they may get all their guys back. Obviously, Brisker's in concussion protocol, so that's kind of like a wait and see kind of thing. But then of course with Gordon had the hamstring, but he was on his Instagram last night or the night before, last night, kind of doing his thing. So maybe it's not quite as bad as you thought there. They said he was going to get an image today, so he may be good. And then Stevenson, of course, did a little bit of practicing. He just was doubtful. So hopefully the extra week off will do him well. So get all these guys back, get this team healthy, the few guys that are dinged up, and then be ready to go after the bye.
It's all deadly. All right, we'll get out of here. We'll stick around for a little bit with the YouTube crowd. If you ever want to join us, we're here every Monday after the Bears play a game, I should say. We're not going to be here next Monday, but we'll be here Monday after a game, 6 o'clock Central Time. We'd love to have you in the comments. Looks like we have 50 comments for us to go look at here after we hit stop. But we will see you next time, and enjoy the bye week. Go out, touch some grass, enjoy yourself. We'll see you on the other side. Until then, bear down. What do we got?
Chris Armstrong just watched JT O'Sullivan's Caleb review, and he thinks they're ready to do more than click. He's very impressed by number 18.
What does that mean? Do more than click? Like we're going straight to the top.
That's how I read it, right? Like that's like to the moon, because he's just doing things, right? It's like
it's so much fun. That's what I mean. Like I just kind of want to. I don't want to skip ahead because I'm excited about. Like you don't want to just waste time. Like you don't want to just squander time, right? And they need the bye week. Like this, it does actually come at a pretty good time. Like how they got beat up a little bit here on defense. Let's hope that they get healthy here. But yeah, I'm really excited. I really want to see how they match up against Washington. I don't know if Washington's good or not. I haven't watched them. I see the stats. I see the results. I haven't dug into them yet. I will now that I've got some time between the next game and they're the next opponent. But I'm not convinced that they're going to be like a contender or anything like that. But again, I need to go watch them. But man, I'm really interested to see how they match up against the Commanders. I'd like to think that they can take care of business in Arizona, but that's a weird road trip a lot of times. Like they're a weird team. They always just seem super volatile. And then the Patriots are bad. Like they got to take care of the business against the Patriots.
Yeah, with Washington, that's a interesting team because it's they have a defensive-minded head coach. They kind of let their rookie quarterback doing his own thing there with Cliff Kingsbury. So it's going to be interesting to kind of see how they do. And they have who do they got this week? Carolina this week, I think they have. So that should be an easy dub for them. So we're not going to learn much of watching the Washington Commanders play against the Panthers this week.
And it's as tough as it is. A loss for the Commanders is a win for the Bears because the Bears still have that second round draft pick. So
is it Canadian Thanksgiving today?
That's what I heard.
Okay.
Yeah, happy Thanksgiving to our Canadian viewers.
And then in Sweden, happy vibe from Sweden. Our guy Axel's in the chat. So
I don't know that it's Thanksgiving in Sweden, but maybe it is there.
We're talking about those overseas games, right? So let's get a game in Sweden here. I am half Swedish, so if the Bears ever play in Sweden, I think I may figure out a way to get back to the home country there.
This is news. Is that where Wildfang is from?
No, that's a German name.
That's German.
My mom's side is 100% Sweden.
Okay.
My grandpa's name was Thor. That's how Scandinavian they get.
Is that where you get the size?
No, my dad's side was
okay.
My dad was 6'4". I got a 6'8" uncle. The German side is gigantic. My mom was like 5'6" or whatever.
Well, because it seems like a lot of the Swedes are pretty big. Like there's a lot of size.
It's possible. My mom was one of girls, so Okay. And my grandpa, he passed before I was old enough to realize if he was big or not. But he had the name Thor, so that's
he had the name Thor. So I'm assuming he's at least somewhat big because you're like 6'6", right?
6'6", yeah.
Jeez. Yeah.
Tav overpowered the line multiple times. There was a couple Twitter threads I saw flashed out there today where they're kind of spotlighting some of his work. And, it's like we talked about, it's the nasty Jenkins, right? We're seeing him do those things that we saw previous in his career. His first 4 games, he was not the same guy. I don't know why. I don't know if, like you said, maybe subconsciously he was playing differently because, this is his contract year. You don't want to think that's the case, but, subconsciously maybe that affected him. But these last 2 weeks, he's like, let's just go. This is who I am. Let's just play. Let's see what happens.
Yeah, I maybe it just a switch flipped on. I mean, it is a new offense. I don't know how much it's different for him, but you just never know. You
Yeah.
just never know what's going through a guy's mind. But yeah, maybe he was like, I gotta stay healthy. I gotta, but yeah, no, man, you gotta turn it on. Like I want as many games as I can get of that Tevin Jenkins, not 17 games of getting your butt
Pass.
handed to you half the time,
Yeah.
Tevin Jenkins. I mean, it wasn't pretty. First couple weeks were rough.
He's always been better as a run blocker and a pass blocker, but it was
Sure.
all pretty bad
Yeah.
early in the year.
I mean, there's got to be a way. I mean, there's some guys that are so good at being aggressive as pass blockers. I mean, a lot of times people say, well, pass blocking is passive, but there are some that will attack as, just as part of their technique. And you just wonder if you could use some of that. But I mean, you got to pass block as a unit. Like I mean, I just think some of these guys they're so big. They're so
Yeah.
they're so built for the run. But is there a way to maybe use some of that aggressiveness in your favor? I don't know. You don't want to create lanes and do all that stuff if one guy's kind of freelancing. But I just
Well, there's ways to be aggressive. I mean, and on O line, it's all about the level. Right? You got to be at the right level. You can't create those
right.
holes for guys
Yeah.
to get through. You watch Trent Williams for the 49ers play left tackle. He is one of the most violent handed dudes that you see. The stuff he does with his snatch and grab, he just rips guys to the ground. And, he's a very violent football player. And he does a lot of it while he's under control with his hands. And it's like, that's what, I mean, I'm not going to say Jenkins will ever get to that level, but, there's some stuff you can kind of take from some of these guys' games that do that, where you're not getting out over your feet. Because that's what you see a lot of time when guys try to be aggressive in pass pro, they get out over their feet, and next thing you know, they're off balance, and it's too easy for the defender to kind of get through. So keep the flat back, keep a good base, work those hands, and there's things you can do as an offensive lineman to stay so you're not passively pass pro.
Yeah, I'd like to see maybe a little bit more of that, but we'll see. I was going to say you see it a little bit more often in tackles than you do guards, and I just kept trying to rack my brain if I can think of a guard that's like that, but I don't know. I have to think about it a little more. But I don't know, like Olin was always very aggressive as a center,
Olin
so
was, yeah.
maybe he needs to come in and tear some of that off for him. I don't know.
We got some fantasy talk here from Bruja. He was busy making his breakfast. Those early 8 a.m. games, man, 8:30 mess up your fantasy lineup. He forgot to put Komet in his lineup. Left those points in the board. He said he's going to win, though.
Well, that's good. I mean, I'm not. I'm getting my butt kicked for the third straight week. It seems like everybody's injured, or their quarterback got injured, or there was bye weeks. Like this is brutal. This is brutal.
Yeah.
I'm on a rough trajectory here. But I always think like if your favorite football team wins, then like who cares what your fantasy team did? If your favorite football team loses, then like it's kind of like, well, my fantasy team won, so it's kind of fun. Like, like kind of it can provide a consolation. If they both lose, it's just kind of like, yeah, let's just skip ahead to the next week.
Yeah.
This is no good.
Like it's always funny to me when I got guys going against the Bears, right? No, it's
Oh,
like, I plug him in the lineup, but like I never, like I got a buddy who refused to play fantasy because he's afraid he'll have to root against his favorite team. And I'm like, that's not how it works. You just kind of
no,
play.
you just don't care about your fantasy team.
You just don't think about it. You just put them in, and because they're going to do what they do, whether they're on your team or not, right?
Yep.
It doesn't matter if they're on your fantasy. Like I had the Jags rookie going on one league, and I had Tank Bigsby going on my other. So it's like, it is what it is.
I don't draft or roster Packers because there's 31 teams. There's enough guys to like pick from. You don't, you can do that and not really hurt yourself. It's not like I'm sitting there in every draft. I'm like, well, best player available is a Packer, and there's a huge drop. No, like you can pick a fantasy team from 31 teams. Like it's not that hard. But it just kind of it was at first a joke, and then it was like, you know what? I feel better about this.
Yeah.
Like there was one year where I took Rodgers like in his heyday. Like it was like it's like, he's really good. This is before, kooky stuff came out. I said, really good. It's the best guy available. There's a real drop off. I'm going to take Rodgers. And he was terrible that year.
Yeah,
And I was like,
it's your
"Ah,
fault.
okay, is that good? Like, I
Yeah,
mean, I'm happy that he was bad, but like, this kind of sucks for my fantasy team because I put everything in that. I usually only draft one quarterback. Like if I take like a guy, or I wait and I'll take two guys and kind of hope that one of them pans out. Kind of that third tier, get a couple of those guys. Like, but I usually, if I can get like my guy's Josh Allen this year, I'm not going to roster another quarterback. I got Josh Allen,
yeah.
who's not been doing well lately. Part of why I've been losing, by the way.
I have him in mind as well. So there's been big discussion on a Nate Davis contract money. I'm not sure how all the deal works, but I know most of the dead money, if you cut
Most of
him, it's
the
just
money is this year.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's there. But I think there may be like a penalty. That's what they're kind of talking about. I'm not sure how the money works, but regardless,
No,
if it's like
normally,
if it's some change, like a million, maybe it's 1.5, whatever they're saying. If he's inactive, if he's not
so
on the roster, what's the point?
I think that this is without looking at it. I could look at it and talk a little bit more specific about it, but I think from memory, he had like just over 2 years of the contract guaranteed, like 2+ years of the contract guaranteed.
Yeah,
So he's going to get everything this year, and then there's a little bit of money next year. And if you cut him earlier, then that accelerates onto this year's cap. So you're gonna pay that salary this year. Now, if he's on the roster the rest of the year and you cut him next year and you can make it like a post, whatever deadline cut, then you can space it out.
yeah.
That's all that is. It's an accounting thing. But the Bears have the money either way. This is not something that you have to worry about, and we're not talking tens of millions of dollars. That's like, a huge percentage of the cap. If they would have cut him before the year, then that would have been a little different. But I think it's not that big of a deal at this point.
Technically, if you wait to the end of the year, it does save a little bit. Like I said, it doesn't hit it, but it's an accounting thing. It's a couple $1,000,000, and I think each team has that kind of factor in anyway. So, I mean, I thought he'd be fine this year. I mean, I'm like, man, is he going to bounce back? He had a really rough year last year with injuries, with personal stuff. He was okay in Tennessee. I thought he'd be fine. I was clearly wrong because he has not been fine, and they're ready to move on. So I think it's just a matter of time. But again, injuries happen. So like they may keep me here for a couple
Oh yeah.
weeks. Something may happen, and like, oh shoot, we just lost Matt Pryor's injuries. Now we need that extra depth piece. So that's kind of why you don't see these teams make their IR moves till they have to. Because I know
But
Jacob Martin is he can be activated from
yeah,
IR. He practiced in full all week. They didn't need him, so they're going to let him sit in that 21-day window. Maybe a roster spot opens up based on something else.
you
Now they
never
can
know.
make that move.
They'll make a move if you don't have to. I mean,
Yeah,
that's there's a little. I mean, again, I don't understand the lack of usage of Khalil Herbert. This is not where I'm going here, but like, whatever. But the number of people now, well, if you're not going to use him, trade him. Get something out of him. It's like
yeah,
there's still 11 games left.
yeah.
Like we don't know what's going to happen. Will Roshan remain healthy the entire year? Will Swift remain healthy the entire year? If they get dinged up and they miss a game or two, Khalil Herbert now becomes a very important player for that next game, and he's better than anybody that they have on the practice squad. He's
Yeah.
better than anybody that you can find on the street right now. So why would you just trade him away? Like you're a team that is looking to compete. Plus, he's contributing on special teams.
He is.
So, like, can we stop with the Khalil Herbert trade talk? It doesn't make any sense to me.
Herbert is going to finish out his contract in Chicago. They'll likely let him walk.
They'll let him walk. Yep.
And then he'll find somewhere and he'll find a job probably as RB2, maybe get lucky and find an RB1 job somewhere. But I don't think the team even has a practice squad tailback on the team right now. So he is a valuable piece because I'm looking at it now. Yeah, there's not even a running back on the practice squad. So they're not going to cut Herbert or trade Herbert because,
Right.
like you said, he's a valuable part of special teams. And they're one injury away from him making a difference here.
I
And
mean,
then we'll show him when he gets the juice going.
unless you're bringing Velus Jones back in for running back reps.
Oh, Velus.
Right? I mean, that's the other guy.
That's the other guy.
All right. Well, I think that's a good place to end it. Everybody enjoy your bye week. I mean that very honestly. It's nice to kind of disconnect. Even if you're just going to watch other football, that's fine. But it's nice to just not have to worry about a Bears game. I mean, as much as I get excited about watching them, there's also like a lot of nervous energy. I mean, it just is what it is. And you know what? I'm glad that nervous energy is back, because I will tell you that there were times over the last couple of years where it was a lot more just dread watching this football team. Right now, there's some excitement. So I'm happy to see that that's back.
You know, I always use the bye week I always tell my family, let's do something on Sunday. Don't you have the Bears?
I don't have to watch the game this week.
Nah, let's just go do something. So I always use my bye week as something to do. I'll always tell them the truth eventually. Like, yeah, the Bears were on a bye. And I think by now they may have figured out my tricks. So, but yeah, but we'll do something. My son is getting married on Friday, so I'm not sure what's going to happen as far as the weekend goes. But yeah, I'm sure I'll figure something out to do here.
How kind of him to do that on the bye week.
It just worked out that way. He does not give a shit about football. So, yeah,
I love it. Awesome. All right. Well, thanks everybody. Really appreciate the time, and we'll see you back here in 2 weeks.